after doing open air at Columbia University, I had the privileges of joining a class that was studying the difference between Calvin and Zwingli's view of war. And the teacher, the professor, was a postdoc grad from England. And it was a brilliant class. After the class, I'm walking out with the professor. I said, Professor, that was an amazing discussion. Thank you for treating me to that. Now, let me ask you, sir, what do you believe? Do you believe in God? Do you believe in Christ? Or what's the option? And this brilliant guy looks me in the face and says, I am not a good person for you to ask that question of. That's scary. That's an unexamined life. You don't know what you're living for. You haven't analyzed what motivates you through life.
Did he tell you why he's not the right person to ask that question?
He just said, I can't answer you. It's this big myth of agnosticism that you can live your life not knowing, and that's intellectually acceptable and intellectually respected. Patrick, it's impossible to live an agnostic life out. You have to decide, is this person valuable or not? If so, why or why not? You have to answer the question, what's the purpose of my life? What are my ambitions and goals? You have no choice. You have no choice but to make ethical decisions every day. Do you cheat the IRS or do you pay your taxes? You have no choice but you have to answer the question every day, am I going to lie or tell the truth? Am I going to cheat and steal or am I going to respect another person's property? And then, by golly, you're going to have to sit in funerals of grandma and grandpa and mom and dad. And I'm sorry, if you don't ask the question, is there life after death or not, you're brain dead. Am I going to see this person again or not? So you have to answer those questions. All of them. Everybody does. And that's why this idea of I don't know, you can't live that out. You have to say, no, I'm never going to see this person again. Yes, I am going to see this person again. Why? Why? Yes, there is a purpose to my life. This is it. Why do you believe that? Yes, I think there are some moral absolutes, maybe not many, but at least a few. Why? Who defines those moral absolutes? Who defines the purpose of your life? Who sets the ambitions that you are following? I mean, if you're a halfway thinking person, you've got to examine what's going on inside. What are you doing with your life? You can't live agnostic. If you ask me, hey, Cliff, you like Coke or Pepsi? I can say, I don't know, I'm agnostic. You're right. I don't know whether I like Coke or Pepsi. And guess what? It really doesn't matter. But when it comes to God and the question of human value, human purpose, ethics, and is there life after death, you have no option but to face those questions.
Could it be because folks who say that, they're so logical and everything has to be proven now, where the idea is no matter what I do, I will never get 100% answer to those questions. So why put my energy into something that is either faith or it's never going to be 100%? Why would I do that? It's not worth me doing that.
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
And here's what's wrong with that. You and I have beautiful wives, don't we? Mm-hmm. Do you know your wife 100%?
No.
No. And I don't know my wife 100%. Mm-hmm. Does that mean you and I can't have a relationship with our wives because we don't understand them 100%? No. We have a wonderful relationship with our wives. In other words, you've got to live with mystery, and I got to live with mystery. And if I can't learn to live with mystery, I'm going to have a horrible relationship with my wife, and you will have a horrible relationship with your wife. To demand that our wives tell me everything there is to know about them, they could never do that, and I couldn't grasp it. Well, if that's true about our relationship with our wives and our children, how much more true that is about a relationship with God. Where on earth do I get off with this intellectual arrogance that says, unless God answers every question I've got, unless I can understand everything about God, I can't believe? If you get a PhD in biology, do you know everything there is to know about biology? Mm-hmm. No. If you do postdoc work in biology, do you know everything there is to know about biology? No. Does anybody know everything there is to know about any area of life, be it biology, chemistry, history, psychology? No. We have partial knowledge, and you better learn to live with mystery. Well, if that's true about every branch of knowledge, it's going to be true about God.
You better get used to living with mystery.
Yep.
Because that applies to kids.
Yep.
That applies to spouse.
Yeah.
Friends, people you hire.
Yep.
You don't have a choice. You
right.
hope to be somewhat intuitive, be able to read at least a little bit to say this guy's full of it or not.
Yeah. Yep.
To live with that, huh? Okay. So there's a Bill Maher. You know who Bill Maher is? Okay. He's 69, I want to say, single, no kids. Hates kids, doesn't want to get kids. He has 68. Asked me a question. He says, so, what's your story? Why do you like kids? And I said, what's the purpose of life? He says, oh, give me a break. Oh, give me a break. I mean, this thing with kids, there's plenty of purpose to life outside of having kids and all this stuff, right? This is when I was on. All right. So I sit there. What is the purpose of being 68 years old, super wealthy, famous, no wife, no kids? Okay. Yeah, maybe, because he's a liberal. Then let's go to the other guy. Who's the other good-looking guy that we had? I want to ask the question, Rob. Why are you not married? The guy that he would do the makeover of the houses, and what's his name?
Mike Rowe.
Mike Rowe. Mike Rowe is here. Can you pull up Mike Rowe's age? Good-looking guy, right? I mean, this guy is as American as apple pie, right? Tall, handsome, strong, firm, conviction, great communicator, incredible voice, good-looking, not married, no kids. Yeah, it's a decision I made, right? And we even had one other one where I asked the same question as well. Larry Elder, I don't know if you know Larry Elder, right? Larry Elder, do you know who he is?
Commentator?
Commentator Larry Elder. Same thing. No kids, 72 years old, right? The three couldn't be more different.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
But they chose to live a life not having a kid. The argument on one person could be like, well, I just don't want the responsibility, and I wasn't going to be a good father. If I would have had a kid, the life I was living, I wanted to be a father that could give time, but I was not going to do anything else but that. You have 5 kids. How many kids do you have? Is it
three boys?
3 boys.
Yep.
Okay. So one of them is a doctor, right?
That's a brother.
Your brother's a doctor.
Yeah.
What do the 3 do?
2 of them are ministers. They work with me at the church and on campuses, and one is in financial services.
Financial services.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. In Connecticut.
And New York City.
Okay, fantastic. Well, good for him. I was in it for 20 years. It's a great business to be a part of. So what have been some of the greatest highs you've ever had in your life? Greatest highs you've ever had? What moments where you go to and you say, Patrick, I cannot even tell you what I felt like on the day when ...
You bet. First greatest high is when I first experienced the presence of God, which meant God is real now. I'd been taught it at church by my parents, but that first time when I was 9 years old and I experienced the presence of Christ with me, that was incredible. Second one was my wife. When she said yes to me and we got married and she committed her life to me till death parts us, wow, that was amazing. And she's been an amazing partner and wife to me. And then thirdly, I got to be there when our 3 boys were born. Oh my goodness. The doctor was a hoot. He was a Jewish gentleman. And, I was just sitting there going, oh my goodness. And he says, something, for a minister, you're awful quiet. I said, well, what does that mean? He said, well, the last minister, I delivered his child, and the guy was lying out on the floor praising the Lord. And I said, I'm sorry, doctor, you're right. I guess I'm not that type. But I do want to thank 3 people. First of all, I want to thank God for the birth of this child. Second, I want to thank you. And thirdly, I want to thank the nurse. And this gentleman looks me in the face and says, in that order? And I said, yes, sir, in that order. God, you, and the nurse. But it was just overwhelming to see those little boys born. It was just incredible, and they have brought so much delight to my wife and me. It's just, I can't describe it.
What would you consider the life of a complete man? Like, what is it to, I'm a 16-year-old boy. I'm a 20-year-old man. I'm a 25, 30-year-old man. I don't know if I want to give up the playboy lifestyle. I'm enjoying myself, I don't want to get married. Too many risks of getting married and family. And what if she does this? And what if she lies to you? What if she takes half of everything you got? And, you got a kid and you're living a divorced life and you got to go back. Why would I want to do that? Why not just live a regular life? And maybe in my 40s, 50s, 60s, I can always have kids later on in my life. What would you say is the life worth living for a man, and why?
You have just done a very good job describing why so many guys don't want to get married. And it's tragic. And some of it I understand. They've watched their parents go through a messy divorce. There's been pain off the charts. And yes, that is tragic. But I think here's the challenge. Life is not perfect. We all get hurt. Now, the question is, how are we going to deal with a hurt? And I'm tempted to wrap a cocoon around me to protect myself from ever getting hurt again. But that often leads right into bitterness, cynicism, loneliness, and that's tragic. So the challenge is to experience the love of Christ, the love of God, His healing, and allow Christ to be the security in your life. And then based in that security of His love and His truth, His presence with you, to then heal and reach out and begin to make commitments to people, which leads us into the second point. Marriage is a commitment. And in our culture, commitment is a dirty word. I don't want to commit to you. I want to leave my options open. The problem with that is it leads to loneliness. It leads to superficial relationships. It leads to trivializing life. When you make a commitment to a person, you bring security into their life by telling them, I'm going to be with you till you die. Do you know how much security that brings into another person? Do you know how much strength that brings to another person? And then when you bring little children into the world and love them with the love of God and celebrate them and get to know them and watch them develop, it is absolutely incredible. It brings so much joy, so much delight to life. But it's scary how many people say, no, I'm going to have sexual liaisons. I'm not going to make a commitment because I'm scared and because I've also been hurt and I don't want to go through the mess that my parents went through. So therefore, I'm not going to get involved. That is a tragic decision.
Somebody may say, come on, Cliff. You're the son of a pastor, man. I mean, your father and your mother set a great example. 56 years married, 6 kids. Your dad spoke 5 languages. My dad only spoke 1 language. Shut up and get the hell out, right? You don't know my life. You don't know what I lived. You don't know the stuff that I had. If you had lived my life, you would also never get married and never want to have kids and da-da-da-da-da, right? What do you say to him?
First point is, no Christian's perfect, and my mom and dad were not perfect. My mom and dad had a lot of pain in their life, and we 6 kids growing up in their home experienced some really stony, quiet times, as well as some verbal barbs that were pretty mean. And if anybody tells me we're not sinners, I'm going to say, I'm sorry. That couldn't be further from the truth. Because my mom and dad were devoted to Christ, but they struggled in their marriage big time. Now, I'm not going to base my life on my mom and dad. I'm going to base it on Jesus Christ, on the living God. You know, I've been thinking about this, Patrick. When I'm about to die, God could say to me, Cliff, if you have built your security on anything or anyone other than me, you're going to lose it right now. Cliff, you're going to lose everything except me. And that's what real faith is. My security, my identity is found in Christ and in God. Therefore, I don't have to be afraid. I don't have to live a life responding to the pain I've experienced growing up. Instead, I can be secure in Christ, strong in Him, and then reach out and, yes, take risks. And of course, marriage is a risk. You bet it's a risk. But it's a risk well worth taking, I would argue.